This week's podcast is brought to you by Unbound Breathwork.
The main controversy is around a new kind of premium version of Spotlight.
What it essentially does is overnight create a two-tier system.
Maybe it's not actually a Spotlight monopoly because Spotlight aren't in control of the way performers are locked in. It's the casting directors that have got the performers locked into Spotlight. And in a sense, it's the performers who have got the casting directors locked into Spotlight because that's where they all are.
Spotlight officially paused their premium feature.
Here's that a whole campaign could be born that educates and brings forward a new industry that can actually fix these problems and benefit everyone.
Welcome to the 8th episode of the Three Rings podcast. My name's Stuart Bishop and I'm here with my fellow director, Bailey J. Muir.
So before we dive into the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and turn on the notification bell so you know all about next week's episode.
So today is part 2 of our Spotlight scandal. If you haven't watched part 1, then click the link now, watch that and then come back and watch this, because I'm going to ask you this question and I don't expect you to answer it, but I am going to try and push you for an answer at the very end. And my question, Bailey, is this the end for Spotlight? I think the best thing to do is to go straight in and let's read through Equity's statement. It was titled Equity's Policy on Spotlight and Casting Directories. In recent months, Equity members have asked the union to review its policy and approach to Spotlight and similar casting directories. This work started with an all-member consultation launched in August, closing in October. With nearly 2,000 responses, it's gained one of Equity's highest response rates for a survey. This review has gained increased importance following the attempted launch of Spotlight's premier tiered service at the end of October. But that's interesting, isn't it, Bailey? Because that's sort of saying that they were already thinking about this. This hasn't just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. This is it. By the fact that they were doing this survey before the Spotlight thing even cracked off, there's been something in development, which again, actually gives us that little bit of a reassurance with Equity. We're very much the same as you, Stuart. Traditionally, I've always been like, they don't do enough, they're not thinking, they're not actioning. Something has definitely changed with Equity in the past 6 months, where it's like they're stepping up to the plate. And this really evidences they were doing that before this. It's not just now they've stepped into action. Something's changed in Equity. I think we should really commend that because they are now bringing forth exactly what the industry needs, and long may it continue.
If a union can actually do things, then great. And that's why, like we said, for a long time, it seems they create policies and no one seems to get behind them, or they never seem to finish anything, or it's sort of, you hear that they're going to talk about it and then they don't. So they've obviously got support behind this and they're going for it. Let me continue. After concerns were raised by Equity, Spotlight users and casting and agent associations, Spotlight has now taken the necessary step of cancelling Premier. This is a success for Equity, our members and the industry allies who spoke out. However, this move does not fix persistent issues with casting directors that continue to impact members. In most industries, it is illegal to charge the workforce for services like Spotlight, except for in performing arts and entertainment industries. The cost of work finding has to be met entirely by employees, as Spotlight currently do not charge agents or casting directors when they are members of the largest professional associations, the PMA and the CGD. Equity believes that this is wrong and that the model should now change. We believe that charging performers to use a casting directory is a tax on hope and an unjust cost for a working person to bear. Now, Bailey, we've just bigged up Equity, but it's like, do they just believe it now, or have they always believed it? Because I was going on about this when I was doing my network seminars. This was one of the main things I was saying, that performers should not be paying for any type of casting platform.
Well, this is one of the problems, isn't it? You'll probably know the answer to this more than me, Stuart, but how long has Spotlight had this website version of? Obviously, we know it's been a company since 1921, but not in its present form. How much money have performers paid into this system over the years that essentially Equity are now saying you should have never paid any of that money? There is an element of there's a huge failure that you've never done this before and cost your members definitely millions, probably hundreds of millions, let's be real. It's not a great look to only be doing it now, but I guess there is this side of, do we want to criticise them too much and put them off doing it? Good on you doing it now, but it should have come before, is what I would say.
It should have come before. And the question is, why didn't it come before? Because, it seems blatantly obvious. Now, we've spoken, obviously, at length off camera about this. And obviously, we have to be very careful what we say here in a legal term, I think. And I'm not. what I'm kind of seeing is that perhaps it wasn't. It suited all parties. Do you know what I mean? It suited all parties for Spotlight to exist, equity to exist, the colleges to promote. Everyone seems to be all these colleges and drama schools, Spotlight, CDG. They're all supporting. PMA. You get it for free if you're part of this. It's all everyone's like in a circle, massaging each other.
It almost reminds me of the Green Day song, like "Do You Know Your Enemy?" It feels like that has been the case up until now. Because Spotlight have been so powerful in the industry, I almost feel like Equity have taken the approach of, we need to be friends with them so we can continue to have conversations and advance the industry. And therefore have possibly overlooked that actually to advance the industry, you need to get rid of this person. It's like, maybe they didn't realise until now they're an enemy. They've been treating them as a friend that they can work with. So obviously, Spotlight, because of the power they hold, Spotlight have the potential to implement a lot of policies that will help the industry. So there's an essence of friend, an essence of enemy, and it's deciding which one they are, isn't it? Which maybe where Equity have been stuck over the years.
Quite possibly. giving him a lot of benefits of the doubts here. No, quite possibly. It just, when I think back, all colleges, what do they say? Oh, you should get with Equity. You should get with Spotlight. It's like, I'm not saying that people are getting kickbacks, but it feels like, it seems to all suit everyone. And again, it's this whole thing, which we're going to delve into, on another podcast at some point, of this kind of level underneath the entertainment industry, which is called the performing arts, which I've always said it's like a holding pit for people who will never probably make it. So you have to give them something to make them feel good for 5 to 10 years until they give up.
Well, this is it. Like, they've always been listed on each other's websites as like partners and all of this. It's been some strange interlinking. And who knows what that is. Maybe it actually just presents stranger than it is. But there's something there, and it may even just be a mentality amongst the industry where when you go through college, you're always told in the same sentence, you need to join Equity and Spotlight. It's never even two separate conversations. So I feel like it's almost like entrenched in all of our minds that they are like one of the same. And it's only now that they've split. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because with Equity, we're getting into it now, with Equity saying that this is a tax on hope, which it is, yeah, and saying that it shouldn't be allowed, which it shouldn't, and somehow it is allowed in the performing arts. I don't know how, but it's like with Equity saying what they're saying, they're basically then, they should be then against the colleges putting telling people to, and the agents. I can tell you something now, Bailey. You'll know this because obviously we've been working together 3-4 years now. But I can guarantee you, obviously, while we've been together as agents, we've never told anyone to get Spotlight. But I can guarantee you, in the 20 odd years before that of me running agencies, I've never told anyone to get Spotlight. So who do we blame here? Do we blame colleges? Do we blame the agents, the casting directors?
Well, this is the thing. I think it becomes education, doesn't it, rather than a blame game. There's definitely someone to blame, but is that actually healthy to move forward with? This is where at the end of the first part of this episode, I had my mini little call out of like, hopefully a full campaign can be born here from Equity, which seems like is kicking into gear. And I would hope the next part of this, maybe when we come back to do part 3, is Equity have sent an email out to all of their members. Don't renew your spotlight. They've reached out to the colleges and gone, stop promoting this. There's more to be done still to keep this movement driving forward. Yeah, we can get a law changed, but that's going to take a fair few years to do. There's stuff we can do in the meantime to protect the performers whilst we get there. I think that's what we need to see come next. And it is half this blame game, but what's more proactive, to be honest, is just making sure moving forward it's not the same. That's where it has to go next if it's going to be effective.
Let's continue with this statement. The council has decided to campaign for the law to be changed, so our industries are brought in line with most others. Equity believes all casting directories, including Spotlight, should be banned from charging work seekers, and so should be free for performers to use. It is the producers and engagers who should bear the cost. Members should look out for how they can get involved in this campaign, which will be launched shortly. They go from one thing to the other. It's like, how has Equity come up with that kind of sort of solution? Go on, what's your thoughts there?
Well, I feel like Equity, in saying that, is actually a little bit naive. I feel like it's still lacking factors. It's lacking another chunk of the argument against Spotlight. And where I say this is essentially, Equity now are saying we have to charge the client for the use of Spotlight. I agree with the client should be the person who foots the expenses for the recruitment. However, it's not the client who chooses to go through Spotlight. There's many, many free methods of casting. Even just a casting director having an email list where they email all of the agents. That works and it's totally free. So it gives me the thought of, is it really the client's responsibility to pay for Spotlight when it's the casting director's tool? It's the casting director that chooses to use it. Probably 50% of the time, the client doesn't even know it's being used. And this, if we compare to another industry, is like a builder turning up to build a new wall for you and making you buy him a new hammer to do the job. It just wouldn't happen. They bring their own tools with them, and then you pay for their expertise. I feel like Spotlight for a casting director is a tool in the toolbox. So if anyone's going to pay for me, it's a casting director. However, I don't actually say that because I think it's the answer. I think when you get onto that method of thinking, this then actually makes you realise no one should pay for it. It just shouldn't exist. It's unnecessary. Because again, why do the casting directors want to use it when there are free methods anyhow? It comes down to nothing but ease, if we're completely honest.
No one comes out good in all of this. But let's just get to the end of this, and then we'll go on to the Stages article. So it is the scale of member disquiet that compels us to respond to this issue. Just that sentence is it sums up Equity, doesn't it?
Yeah, we don't do anything until you tell us to do it.
They got no backbone. That's what it is. They got no backbone. If you think something, you got to do it. You know, don't wait for everyone to go, yes, we support you. Just do it.
But then, devil's advocate, is that not exactly what a union's about? To be honest, this is why I always say companies aren't sentient. This is an organisation. It doesn't even have a director, I don't believe, because it's a union. So it just appoints someone every year or every 2 years to be in charge. So actually, are Equity allowed to have an opinion, or are Equity actually just meant to do what their members call for? Again, I think this is it's another tough point where Equity might not be as bad as they are often made to look by what goes on. Again, it may come from they just don't have the support underneath that is directing them where to go. And they actually need that support to be able to go where they want to go.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be that. It could be that, or it could be they've just got no backbone. However, it's very easy for us to slag off Equity. But when we do have a proper discussion about it and we do detail it, it's up to us as well, to come out with views like that. And you're possibly right.
It's identifying who's meant to have that backbone, isn't it? Because you can't place it on a person's head. So just saying Equity, it's not even sentient. It doesn't know what you're saying. It's like for me and you to have a backbone is so easy because it's just our opinion will lead our company. Equity is such a different model that I feel like unless you're actually inside Equity, it's impossible to really understand how it works. Welcome to the new chapter in your wellness journey, brought to you by Unbound Breathwork. the proud sponsors of this podcast.
Dive into the transformation power of 9D breathwork, an immersive experience that combines ancient breathing techniques with state-of-the-art soundscapes to guide you into profound states of relaxation and healing.
Unbound Breathwork's online sessions are your portal to deep healing, accessible from the comfort of your own space by visiting www.unboundbreathwork.co. You can turn any room into a sanctuary of peace and self-discovery.
Seeking solace from stress or a path through trauma, our sessions are crafted for deep healing from within, offering a tranquil space to breathe, release, and rejuvenate your spirit.
As a special thank you to our podcast listeners, you can now get an exclusive 50% discount on your first session. Just enter the code 3rings50 at checkout to unlock the full potential of 9D breathwork for half the price.
If you're curious and want a glimpse of the experience, there's a 5-minute session sample waiting for you on the website. It's a sneak peek into the powerful journey that awaits.
Stay connected on Instagram at Unbound Breathwork and join a community committed to breathing, healing, transforming and thriving together.
Don't let this opportunity pass you by. With the code 3Rings50, your transformation journey is just a breath away. Visit the website, sign up, and embark on a path to a rejuvenated life.
Remember, the road to healing begins with a single breath. Unbound Breathwork is here to guide you every step of the way, breathing new possibilities into your life. Big thank you to Unbound Breathwork for sponsoring this episode of the podcast and kindly sharing this promo code for us to share with our listeners and viewers of the podcast.
Okay, so they then say, we are articulating concerns felt and expressed across our membership. Despite our disagreements with Spotlight over their business model, the union will continue to engage with Spotlight and other casting directories where we have shared an interest for the good of our members and our industries. In short, Equity Council has agreed to begin a member campaign to pressure casting directories to charge producers and those involved in the casting process and ban directories from charging our members to use their service. Explore all avenues to protect members from exploitation under the current system for charges for inclusion. Why don't you tell us about the Stage article?
So obviously the Stage released an article reporting on all of this going on, and they've got statements from a few casting directors, a few agents, etc. I can't read you out the entire thing because obviously the Stage is locked behind a paywall, but I encourage you to go and read it. I'll drop a link in the description down below. However, I will read you the bit that I can read you before we dive into it all. The headline is Spotlight Industry Debate Ignites Over Who Should Pay for Casting Site. Calls from Equity to ban Spotlight from charging actors have ignited a sector-wide debate over who should foot the cost for the casting site and rival services such as the Mandy Network and Star Now. Now, that's as much of it as I can read you. However, what I can do is give you a brief overview of what's in there that we will then discuss. So, there's a whole controversy stemming from Equity's initial statement where they make the reference to members of the PMA and CDG don't pay for Spotlight, but all of the performers do. Now, it seems Equity have actually made a bit of a mistake in their wording there, because that sentence on its own in isolation, it implies that Equity have a belief that the agents and casting directors should be the ones footing the bill. Obviously, as we've just been through, the rest of that statement from Equity kind of brings clarity to it that they want the clients to. However, not completely, because the isolated paragraph is still not very well worded. So I feel like it's left a lot of the industry in this position where they're thinking Equity is saying performers are the only people who shouldn't pay. Agents should, casting directors should, producers should, clients should. And this has then kicked off a whole other thing, because obviously the casting directors, it's still not their job. They shouldn't be the one footing the bill for recruitment. Agents, not our job. We shouldn't foot the bill for recruitment. It is only the client that should have that expense. Obviously, to revert back.
So who? Go on. Just to interject, just in case people watching don't know who you're talking about here. Where the two main casting, you said the PMA and the CDG. So just for those who don't know that is the Casting Directors Guild, and what does the PMA stand for?
So you've got the Casting Directors Guild, who looks after the majority of casting directors. You also have the CDA, which was a breakaway, the Casting Directors Association, which has a few of them. There are actually a few casting directors in both as well. CDA are very quiet at the moment, but really they're still involved in this conversation. And then you've also got the PMA, which is the Personal Managers Association, which is a huge chunk of basically the UK's biggest talent agencies. So you've got a group of casting directors, a group of agents, in essence.
Talk to me about Paul Fleming.
So Paul Fleming is the General Secretary of Equity at the moment. So this whole thing from the stage, obviously it sparked this whole conversation, and Equity was starting to get a little bit of kickback, being like, why are you saying this? Why are you calling for casting directors to pay? Why agents to pay? So Paul on his own Twitter.
Sorry, kickback from where?
Just the general industry, people just adding them on Twitter in their comments being like, is this correct? Is that what you mean? That's not what we want. So they were just getting basically very, I wouldn't say attacked, but challenged. So basically this prompted Paul to then come out on his own Twitter to try and clarify. And it weren't quite in these words, but he's basically acknowledged that the statement weren't great. That's not Equity's stance. They were just using that to try and make a point that maybe they shouldn't have made because it's misled people. Equity's actual stance is just the end client should pay. So he's basically come out to try and give clarity, which in a sense, this article from the stage, it puts to bed everything that's been said there because it's not what Equity were actually trying to say. However, there was some more interesting bits in that with a few agents coming out saying that they actually were happy to pay for Spotlight to go on, which took me by surprise that anyone would say that. What's your thoughts on that, Stuart? Why do you think any agent would be like, yeah, I'll pay?
Let's go back 5-6 years ago of me, doing seminars and campaigning and going and talking against Equity and Spotlight. And one of the things then I said, well, look, why should performers pay for it? As an agent, I'd be more than happy to pay for it. Now, let me tell you something. I said that then because I had in my head, there was no inkling that this would ever happen. Spotlight is so locked in, it seems, that everyone just goes, yeah, we've got to have our Spotlight, number or whatever it is, and we've got to do it. That for me to say, yeah, I wouldn't mind paying, it was an easy thing to say, because over a performer, I think, if you had to choose, you'd say, yeah, it'd be the agent. But there's no way that I'd ever want to pay. And the time to say that you'd want to pay is when there doesn't seem to be any chance of it ever happening. Not when actually there is the door has been opened for no one to pay. Why on earth, as an agent, would you then come out and it's like they were I don't know, we don't have to name and shame, but it's like these couple of agents who got interviewed, whatever, were trying to get some kind of woke kind of, hey, look at me, I'm on the side of the performers. But it was just like, no, you don't, there's no need. No one needs to pay. That's my thoughts on it, basically. I was just like, what are they doing? Why would you pipe up? Can you not see this is the opportunity for no one to have to pay? We shouldn't have a platform like that charges it, or it's got to be somehow, I don't know, we'll talk about solutions later, but that's my thoughts. It's maybe a bit, I don't know. What are you shocked at those thoughts or what?
No, I totally agree with you. I would say everything you've just said there, but I think there's also another side to it as well, where actually just having that thought process almost lacks perspective of what the problem is here. It's like Equity have used this great statement. I love the poetry of it. It's a tax on hope. We don't only need to address the tax part, which I feel like is what that opinion is doing. We also need to address the hope part of that, which is this 90,000 versus 2,500 roles a month. This service isn't delivering value even if it's free. It's giving false hope, and we need to undo this. And this is where I'm really going to give out a call to the PMA and the CDG, more widely agents and casting directors, but I think the PMA and CDG alone can change it all overnight if they make the right decision. And what I want to try and say here is it's all about supply and demand. See, Equity are trying to move to make this business model illegal. However, that's probably going to take 3, 4, 5 years of campaigning. Do we actually want to sit around for those 3, 4, 5 years and let performers pay another few £1,000s for this before it's ended? I think it's time that we end it early before the law gets changed. And with this, we need to take control of our supply and demand. Now, you can't control where your demand comes from, but you can control where you place your supply. So I'll take this from an agent side first of all. Our demand comes from the casting director's castings. So until the castings are gone, we have to be on Spotlight. However, our supply is the performers. Our performers don't need to be on Spotlight for us to keep facilitating those castings. Therefore, our performers do not need to keep paying this fee. And without them paying that fee, Spotlight will end and the casting directors will have to move to alternate methods anyway. So that's where agents need to take responsibility. Stop putting people forward via Spotlight. Tell your talent that they don't need it. They will still be seen for every project. Then on the casting director's end, again, you can't control where your demand comes from. That is always going to come from your client, but you can choose where you put your supply. Their supply is where they put the castings. They're the only ones making the agents have to stay there. So they need to put their casting through alternate methods, and that will then push any agents that are left behind to go, oh, there's nothing left on Spotlight, so I'll have to move to alternate channels. And even any that are left telling their performers that you need to be on Spotlight. Eventually, if enough castings are gone, they're going to have to come to the reality of, yeah, this is done. You don't need it anymore. This is how the industry now works. We've got to shift. You can control your supply. Agents can make the change and casting directors can make the change if we hold strong and just move elsewhere. And it's literally as easy as just taking things to email. Get an email list. You can make a database in one day, and that's now your new Spotlight. We can almost work the same way of doing these endless briefings every day via email, but without any performer having to pay and without this just false hope, essentially. We can be more selective of when we've got a dance job, we go to dance agents. We've got an acting job, we go to acting agents, and even independent people. As we meet them through their careers, let's say casting director, maybe independent actors can email their stuff over, and if a casting director likes them, they get added to the email chain that the acting agents are in if they're an actor, or the dancers agents list if they're a dancer. So they can receive it and the casting directors are sending to the people that actually should be on it. No longer every casting goes to 90,000, actually it goes to the correct select 5,000 maybe, which is still a huge gap of false hope if you're trying to only cast 1 or 2 roles. But it's still a million times better than the model we're on right now.
Firstly, I agree with all that. Secondly, Bailey, you know what was funny was as all this started to develop, we started to see the, 1 or 2 casting director. In fact, I'm going to say it, Mark Summers. Mark Summers comes out and says, I think it was something in the vein of, oh, look, we always put out our castings for free. We don't think people should have to pay for them. Oh, right. When did you start thinking about this, Mark Summers? When did you start thinking this? Have you just started thinking this? Because you've been happy to put your castings all over Spotlight for however long it's been. I just don't get the, and if you really think that, take off Spotlight. You are influential enough that if you did it, because so many people in the arts are just like puppy dogs, people would follow.
That's it, do it and make a big deal out of it. And imagine the benefit he would actually get from that as well. He'd literally be the industry's most loved casting director overnight. You've got so much to gain. If I was a casting director right now, I'd be like, I've got to be the first to do it. I can't believe they're not.
I was at dinner the other night, right? I won't say with who, but you could probably find out if you check my Instagram. But I was at dinner and I was chatting to someone who is a casting professional. And I was saying, look, this, we were kind of debating whether Spotlight, if it is really over them or not. And the general consensus, I think, that a lot of people will think, and my friend thought this, was that it's going to take a long time, like you said earlier, to change a law, which always, it could take years. Yeah. And in the meantime, there'll be something else. There has to be a Spotlight But it's going to take a long time for something new, blah, blah, blah. So there's no real rush in it. And I said no. If one big casting director really puts out that, look, this is, I've thought about it and I'm coming off Spotlight, and then another one, and then another one, that is it. That is the end. It could literally fall within a week or so.
For sure. And I think this is a call with these casting directors that are now trying to put out these statements of, we are on the performer's side, so we're not going to make you have to be on Spotlight. We'll put it out on Spotlight and on social media. It's just not enough. And it comes down to, I think, a lack of understanding how their casting is leveraged by Spotlight. The value the members pay for is access to castings. So even if you put it out for free, Spotlight is still using that as their tool to advertise, join Spotlight because you get 2,500 castings, as is one of the very first things you see on their website right now. The only way we're going to end performers feeling a need to pay for it is by lowering that number of castings that they can display they have on their website. That's what performers are paying for. Whatever you put it in, you are supporting the model, even if you give an alternative. It shouldn't be an alternative, it should just be the sole new method.
It feels like everyone is just going to wait and see what happens. But in the meantime, it's the performers who are suffering. Especially, now people are thinking, well, should I renew my Spotlight? Should I be paying for this in the future? What's going on? I would recommend, I've always recommended performers. You do not need, and this is the thing which they probably don't know. You don't need to be part of Spotlight because the castings go to the agents, who are on Spotlight, So you don't need the performer, because what you don't want, performers, is for your agent to be relying solely on putting up your Spotlight link. Because the Spotlight profiles, they don't show a performer off to their best. You look exactly the same as every other performer. And the whole point of making a name for yourself is exactly that. You can't make a name for yourself if you are exactly the same as, presenting yourself as exactly the same. So that casting will get to the agent. The agent, any sane agent is not going to put up the Spotlight profile. They're going to put up their profile, a link to their own website. This is when you can start to see which agents are actually, really there for their performers, or they're just there for themselves. Because if they're there for their performers, they will have a lovely website showing off the profiles, and really making sure that their artists have the best ability to get that job. Just relying on a Spotlight link and telling your performers as a thing, when you join, you've got to join Spotlight. I mean, it's just, I don't know if I said my point there or not, but basically you just don't need to go. The agents get the castings anyway, so they're going to put you up anyway. They're not going to go, you're not on Spotlight, so I'm not going to put you up.
And I don't even know if it's a case of those agents that don't have that stuff don't care as much as it is they just don't actually know what they should be doing if Spotlight didn't exist. It's so rooted in the industry that this is just the way things happen, that I feel like a lot of people just don't actually think about how could we do this better. They just go, this is what happens. I actually think when Spotlight falls, is going to enhance the whole industry, because people are going to have to start actually going, do you know what? I actually need to understand marketing now. I need to understand business, branding, all of this stuff, online presence. And it's going to actually kick agents into gear of going, do you know what? We need to do more. We should have been doing it all these years. Spotlight allowed us to relax too much and took our finger off the pulse. It's allowed people to just calmly exist, which isn't good. We need people to have a need to drive forward, a need to compete. Again, because all the profiles are identical, no one's competing, no one's trying to be better than each other, because a Spotlight profile doesn't allow you to do anything different. We're just robots in an industry. We need a healthy level of competition to drive everyone forward.
It would be monumental if if casting directors did start to come out and say, we're not using this platform. It really would. Everything would change overnight. Will it happen? I don't know, because, what was it, 2 episodes ago? We talked about, that, actually probably more than 2 episodes, about the week when everyone went crazy because Spotlight were down, they need, a lot of people feel they need it. And even some are willing to pay for it.
Well, this is it. It's like, as soon as Spotlight goes, there's so many people that are going to collapse and go out of business. And that sounds like a bad thing. However, I'd also place a little argument here of, is that actually a better thing? Because it's going to then mean more people need to work together. I think one of our problems in the UK at the moment is that there's too many agencies, not necessarily too many agents. The more agents are working under one house, the better that agency can become, and the better that can represent all its clients, and the more clients it can have. If we look at companies like a UTA or YMU, these huge international talent agencies, they're at that level because the amount of hands on deck. We're most effective when all the agents are under one roof, not when every agent is just them as the agent and they're the only agent in the company. These little individual agents almost hold people back as well, because the agency itself can't get big enough to do the most effective job. We're better under these huge roofs, and it's going to feed more potential staff into them, I would say.
We've discussed this before. We won't mention names, but there's certain agencies out there that they literally represent the bottom feeders, and they will be the ones at college shows or drama school shows that, literally will take on anyone. And it's then the performers, oh yeah, I want to get this bit, but I've already been offered this agency. Yeah. And this is more kind of actors or musical theatre, obviously. They're holding out because the one they have been offered is basically a load of rubbish. And what's happened over a period of time is that people have seen, oh God, there's so many performers out there who are basically rubbish. But what they're doing is they're creating a whole big new genre of people that we can make money from, we can sell shit to, we can give advice to and sell that advice to them, and we can become their agent, even though they would never normally get an agent because they're not good enough to get a good agent. So it's like, not everyone needs agents, because we're at a point now where it seems like it's the easiest time ever to get an agent. But that can't be good, because it means basically no one is if there was, and I'm not saying there should only be 3 or 4 big agencies, but if the fewer there are, the bigger competition, the better people would be. It can't be that you can be you can come into the industry and be okay and still kind of work. It should be the best should rise to the top.
This is where we've got to find that difference between what should the individual agent bring to the table and what should the agency bring to the table. The agent should just be one department within the agency. And this is where even us as a relatively small agency are quite lucky, because we have a lot of skills within. For example, we can do website design, logo, graphics, social media, all of this stuff. They are all departments that need to exist within an agency. So the individual agents that have their own agencies do the agent bit great, but they're lacking all these pieces of the puzzle where, to manage effectively, you need branding, you need someone making stuff for your social media, you need someone on your website, you need PR managers. The agency should bring that. The agents can keep doing what they are now, but they need to click in with larger departments. You can't do that as a one-man band. This is where it needs to go. There's more to be done as an agency than what the agent themselves does. And I think that's something where we lack the understanding, because what's most common in the UK is individual agents in an agency. No agency is really doing enough for us to even understand what a full agency should look like. Our only shining examples are a Curtis Brown, a YMU, UTA, even up to the large scale of like WME, do you know what I mean? Universal. these are agencies that have the top talent because they can promote them to the top because they have the facility to do everything the talent need. It's more than just a negotiation and suggesting. There's so much more to the puzzle.
It's coming to an end, not just Spotlight, but just the whole performing arts. And, anyone who knows me, it's like I'm a conspiracy theorist with it. I've been going on about this for ages. It's over. It's going to end, because it can only end when you've got so many people and it's swelling and swelling and swelling, and colleges and drama schools building and getting bigger and bigger and more, because it's not just Spotlight. It's Mandy, and Star now and all these other, things.
It's signalling the end of a mentality within the performing arts and entertainment, not just the end of a casting platform. That casting platform has almost become now the scapegoat for all the other problems. And actually, without it, the whole process changes anyhow. So all the other industries, there's like a knock-on effect. It's like cards falling over. It's all going to have to change in the click of a finger.
It's interesting you say that, because look at the CDG and then saying what they said. And then, who was it? Was it Anne Vosser?
Oh, yeah, who isn't in there. Yeah, Anne Vosser, musical theatre.
Yeah, so what did she say? The point she was trying to make?
Basically, what Anne Vosser has revealed is that the CDG members don't have to pay for Spotlight. However, casting directors that aren't in the CDG do actually already have a charge. So there is already a double-ended charge, which it seems like from Equity's statement, Equity didn't even know that was going on. So there's even a challenge here of, why should the CDG ones get it for free? What makes them so different than the other casting directors? Again, it's like a class divide of casting directors. Almost CDG is Spotlight Premium.
And she was saying, not in these exact words, but she was saying basically, well, look, I've been on CDG and now I'm not on it, but that doesn't make me any less of a casting director. I mean, I was shocked. I didn't know that. But when we've cast in the past, now I remember, we then haven't used Spotlight because they wanted to charge us. So we used Castweb and other means.
I usually just direct email out to the actual agencies, to be honest, which is exactly this point I'm trying to make. It's so easy for the casting directors to do. Just have a database. I put that database together in 3 hours, emailed, we've cast every job off the back of that database. It's so simple.
You don't want to hear from 200-300 agents. You want to hear from the ones that that you always look through. Oh, well, I like this person, this person, this person. Good. Maybe a few others, but you don't want 200 agents sending you suggestions. It's just a waste of time. You must know. Otherwise, what is a casting director good for if they don't know the talent? It's not like it's not like it's huge. Like, you're seeing the same faces all the time. You must know who is good and who's not, and which agencies are going to supply you with this and that. I can hear in the background, people going, yes, but that's not fair. That's not fair if only this agency or that agency or that agency. But it's like, well, life isn't fair. If we are going to have a fair performing arts industry, it's going to be rubbish. No one's going to work. No one's working anyway.
This is where it's double-ended as well, if you want to call it's not fair. Is it fair for every single person to receive it, and therefore you have 0.00001% of booking the job? Is that fair on you to actually have hope of the job, but it's a case of winning the lottery? I don't think that's fair. I described this the other day of it's like putting a dog out of its misery. You're sat suffering because everyone's getting everything. So therefore no one can succeed. Back to the stats I gave in part 1. By the current numbers on Spotlight, membership versus castings, you're estimated to book one job in 3 years. That's likely to be like a £350 day fee. And for that, you've had to pay out a load of Spotlight memberships that actually cost more than that £350. It makes it impossible for people to have careers. I don't think there's a fair way.
I could hear people going, "Well, do you know, Bailey? I've had 5 jobs from Spotlight in the last 3 years." Like,
the exception doesn't disprove the rule. Statistics don't lie. If you're beating the statistics, brilliant, great for you. But that is not representative of the majority of Spotlight members. It's statistically impossible for it to be the case.
it's simply the drugs don't work. Do you know what? Right? It's God. There's so much to this, and for us, it's fascinating watching everyone suddenly come out against each other and blaming each other, and some want to pay. Fucking hell, some want to pay. We'll pay. Like it's like, okay, you save the business, which is going to basically go to pot now. So if you do pay, if we had to pay, we'd have to pay actually, didn't you work this out?
Let me give you a little stats breakdown, as I love to do. Here it comes.
Spotlight currently charge performers £183.60 per year. This means, with 90,000 members as advertised, turnover is £16,524,000 annually. There are believed to be approximately 1,900 active agents in the industry at present. This means, were agents to foot the bill, each agent would have to pay Spotlight £8,696.84 per year. There are believed to be approximately 400 active casting directors in the industry at present. This means, were casting directors to foot the bill, each casting director would have to pay Spotlight £41,310 per year. Finally, Spotlight currently state they hold 2,500 roles per month, thus 30,000 roles per year. This means, were the end clients to foot the bill, each individual role will cost an additional £550.80 to cast.
Well, guys, let's end this with the crazy that I thought the thing that made me laugh the most, which was Mandy. What did they do?
So earlier this week, Mandy emailed us for some reason, even though they know we're not performers. They emailed us an email that was meant to go to the performers, which was a Black Friday sale on performers membership. I literally got the email. I was like, do you not even know what's going on right now? What would go through your head to say anything right now? Like, Mandy aren't really getting attacked. Spotlight are taking the flak. If I was Mandy, I'd be like, let's just sit quiet. Let's not send a single email out. I mean, ride the storm. I literally felt like they were trying to be like, oh, remember we exist as well. Attack us too, please. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe, after everything that happened, Mandy then puts it out. Like you said, it's like they don't know what's going on. And there's been other groups and organisations out there who you think, oh, they'd chip in on it, and they just haven't. Every performer should understand what's going on here and should be like, right, I don't want to have to pay to get jobs. Like, you shouldn't have to pay. You should be making money. That's what we want to do. It's like the old years ago where there was agency who would charge to get on an agency. Most performers, they got the memo on that. Most performers now know that you don't pay to be on any type of agency. So why they think it's okay to pay to be onto a casting platform, I just don't know. But it's the agents. The agents have told them that you have to do it.
Oh, yeah. And this is a problem. It just should never be given as advice. And this is why I come back to that thing of, I don't think the agents are thinking, because it's so easy to get that brief through and just go, oh, I'll just email my clients in. Every casting director has their email listed on their website. It's literally like no one's actually thought when they're pressing the submit on Spotlight. It's actually another way to do this. I don't need my performers on Spotlight. I want to give the agents the benefit of the doubt that actually the only reason they encourage the performers to keep paying for it is just because they haven't thought that there is an easy alternative. It's like they just can't see the obvious that's sat right in front of them, which I find really hard to comprehend, but I can't see any other reason for it.
There will be some agents out there who, especially the bigger ones, the huge ones, they will be, seeing Spotlight as great because they'll probably be getting lots and lots of jobs. Agencies like us, we have to rely on getting clients from outside. We couldn't rely on Spotlight. Like it is literally a needle in the haystack. It's often, it feels like a waste of time putting people up for it.
And even with these big agencies that get loads of stuff from Spotlight, I would want to say to them, okay, but are you getting that from Spotlight, or are you getting that from the casting director using Spotlight? I don't think the end of Spotlight signals the end of them getting them jobs. The casting directors are still going to be casting. They're still going to receive the email. It just doesn't need to be on a Spotlight platform. I still don't understand how Spotlight's existence helps them. It's convenient because it's where the castings are right now, but it doesn't need to be. You'll still get the castings.
We've sort of pinpointed some things that should happen. And we're in agreement, aren't we, that it should be, that if casting directors started saying, right, that's it, I agree, I'm off, that would be it, wouldn't it? That really is the, casting and agents. Agents should stop. So basically we're saying agents should stop saying that their client has to be on Spotlight. Colleges should stop recommending it as well.
Yeah, this is it. We know it's going to take a fair few years for equity to get the change. So let's just give equity a hand and stop performers having to pay before then. Some point the law will change, but we shouldn't wait till that and keep paying out every single year. We've got to all hold up our end. We're in quite a lucky position, really, that we can shout loud that part that I addressed earlier, where the agent's part is just stop suggesting via Spotlight, so the casting director's supply gets moved away. That's the agent's part. We're lucky we can say we've done that. Hopefully loads of other people will follow suit. And it's the same on every end. Colleges, you've got to stop telling your performers to join. It's going to end anyhow. Casting directors, stop putting your castings there. Help the performers be comfortable with leaving. We've all got to chip in and help here. Because ultimately, with this law change coming around, if we keep forcing the performers to need to renew their year subscription, at some point, there'll be a group of performers get 2 months into their subscription, the law changes, and they lose the other 10 months they paid for because Spotlight doesn't exist anymore. By the time it comes to the law change, there should be no one left. We can't allow anyone to lose money when it ends. We need to stop as quick as possible, is what I would say.
I'm going to come back to that question then that I asked at the start. Is this the end for Spotlight?
I would say definitely the end for Spotlight. However, I think it's way bigger than just the end for Spotlight. I think it's the end of the whole industry model as we know it. Because Spotlight is like the pin that's holding it all together. Pull that pin out and it's all just going to collapse and we're going to find a brand new way. I feel like the whole casting process will change. This language that we use in like third years at college on what you need to do when you get into the industry, even down to advice that agents give. I feel like every single bit of the performing arts, the dance industry, the entertainment industry as we know it is about to completely flip. Spotlight, yes, but I think it's a wider thing of the whole current industry is ending. Now let me flip the question back on you, Stuart. Do you think it's the end of Spotlight?
I do. I can't see a way that they're going to be able to make, they're in a big building. I can't see it. And the thing we haven't spoke about actually, which is the sad thing of this, is that there must be people working for Spotlight looking at all this thinking this could be, I could lose my job here.
And for those Spotlight employees as well, like, think about the shock they must have right now. Because obviously this whole thing was born out of Spotlight rebranding. We're going to launch this new membership plan that's got analytics on the profiles and a mental health hotline. All this stuff, which I'm sure inside they'd have been going, this is going to be great. And brand new offices. They must have been sat there the day before this launch being like, I can't wait for tomorrow. Spotlight's about to go to a whole other level. None of them will have been expecting this to be the collapse. They must really be in a state of shock, which for the individual people, I absolutely do feel sorry for.
You just have to do the maths. Basically, you just have to do the maths. They're earning a lot of money, and that same amount of money is not going to be made from charging agents or charging casting directors. Somehow they would need to find some kind of little way of the casting directors passing the fee onto the client or something like that, but it's gonna be messy. There's gonna be no easy solution to that. But I'm charging you extra for this, or because then why would a casting director want to say that? They would just have to take the hit. But then why would it have to be the casting director? They don't need to. Like we said, Mark Summers does not need to post on Spotlight. Everyone sees his stuff.
This is another huge hole in that equity statement, isn't it? Where they're saying the client has to be the one that pays. Spotlight never have any interaction with the client. How is Spotlight going to get the client to pay? The only way is for the casting director to collect it, as we say, but then how is Spotlight going to regulate that the casting director has collected it? The casting director isn't going to get paid that before they put their brief out on Spotlight, presumably. You've got payment windows and all sorts. So you're going to be allowed to put your casting out before the client's paid. How can you keep track on who has and hasn't paid? It's just unfeasible. It really is. And
is it just for one job? Do you pay per job, or are you paying for the whole year? Because if you're just a client who uses, we've got a special event. We've never used dancers before. We've never used actors before. We want it just for this thing. Saying that, they might be more gullible to then pay the extra a new client. But I don't know. It just seems so messy. I would not want to be the one around that table trying to come up with the new solution. They'd have to make money from other ways. We talked about advertising, but I don't think they'd do it from advertising because
it's too high. The cost is still too high. Like, just calculate 90,000 performers times the membership fee. How are you going to replicate that? Like, the newspapers can do it because the entire British public are going there. But in a marketing sense, 90,000 people isn't that much. That's the traffic. It's just I can't see a way it's supportable by any method.
How and what could Spotlight turn into? It's not going to make its money just from having little rooms for people to come and do self-tapes and little castings, is it?
It may just be a case of it needs to split its features up, to be honest. You have a casting studio, that's one business. You have one thing that's just a directory of performers, like an IMDb. And then you have another thing that's just like a Facebook group for castings. It's when you put all those features together that it creates this, what is called a monopoly. As I said in the last episode, I don't believe it technically is a monopoly, but it presents that way for sure. And that's the problem. It's the way it presents. It's got to be split up. You can't do all of that in one place. It's just not ethical at the end of the day. Monopoly or not, it's not ethical.
That's our opinions. What are yours? Let us know in the comments.
Hit the subscribe button. Click a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Come on, if you sat here by now, you must have done. And turn on the notification bell so you know all about it next week when we come back. Give us a follow on social. You can check us out on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, you can come to YouTube, or on Amazon, Google. Anywhere you get your podcasts, we'll be there ready and waiting for you.
Bailey, it's been a pleasure. We're going to have a meeting now. So I'll see you in a second. But thanks for your opinions as normal. And I'll see you on the next episode.
Nice one, Stuart. I'll catch you soon.